Martial World Teyvat Chapter 61c, Fantasy Fiction by Azazyel. I was about to continue, but then I paused as Keqing squeezed the hand around my waist before a soft clatter rang out as the doorbell, that consisted of several wood rattlers attached to a string leading to the front door, made a loud noise. Well well. Let's go see who is at the front door, I muttered as I held in a grimace at the thought someone was listening in on our conversation even though I was using my white noise machine. We walked outside of our cabin house and we headed over to the wooden gate that led to the exit of our small walled-in estate. Keqing let go of my arm even as she stood beside me, but she was at the ready with her hand resting on her sword as we were well used to Miko and Kitsune Saiga not caring about privacy and just appearing directly on our front porch. I opened up the door and as I saw who was on the other side of the door, I blinked in surprise as it was honestly the very last person I expected to see there. Hello. May I help you, Lord Kamisato? I asked curiously as I took in Ayato Kamisato, who was the head of the Kamisato clan. Ayato had light blue hair with purple eyes that showed a great deal of cunning and intelligence within his gaze that likewise was judging me and Keqing. And after our shared moment of inspection, he gave a small smile and spoke quietly. Hello Jake Barris, and this must be your lovely wife Keqing. Ayato bowed his head slightly towards Keqing in greeting before he looked me in the eye and said with that same smile that I realized was a mask for his cunning as he said calmly. Jake, do you mind if I come in so we may speak man to man? I blinked at the way he put it. Because I started the conversation to begin with, by labeling him as Lord Kamisation, which was part of the tri-commission that ran a good bit of the day-to-day life here in Inazuma. So after a moment of thought, I shrugged as I had nothing to lose from letting him in and listening to him. It wasn't like Ayato was a criminal of the state or anything. Sure, come on in, I said with a shrug and brought Ayato into our estate with us walking ahead of him as we entered the cabin, and as Keqing began making tea I sat down at the small table with Ayato elegantly sitting on his knees before me on the other side. After a moment of silence with the only sounds being the noises of Keqing making the tea, Ayato broke the silence. So, Jake Barris. Would you prefer to share pleasantries, or would you like to just get to why I came here, what I offer, and what I ask for in turn? I raised an eyebrow at his wording again before I nodded and said calmly. Speak plainly then. Offer what you will, and we will see what I can do. Ayato took a deep breath and spoke quietly. Days have passed since your large food factory has been built. But the prices of food will not lower, the commoners will not receive a large influx of food even. All that treasure rice will instead fill the stomachs of the soldiers of Inazuma. Giving Ayato a look, I thought about it before I shrugged and said. For one, that's not my problem. The weak, whether in mind or body, suffer in this world, and that's just a fact. Taking a breath I continued. And also, wouldn't a large amount of soldiers being fed by the treasure rice make the common populace have more food to go around anyway? Soft clinking noises rang out as Keqing gently put 2 cups of Inazuma-style tea between us, with Keqing taking a seat away from the table but with her sword in her lap as an honestly rude warning towards Ayato. But he had no visible reaction as he respectfully took a drink of the tea before he spoke quietly. You forget human nature, Jake, especially those born within nobility and believing they are owed more in life than what others can receive with their own hard work. Ayato put down the cup of tea and spoke coldly. Corruption will see the families of the quartermasters glutted with food. Said food will be snuck out and sold for other things, not to mention the simple fact that with you here. Why should the Raiden siblings account for only a single food factory? My lips curled at the truth in that as Ayato finished calmly. They are already drawing up the next 4 lots for you to work upon. 2 more food factories, along with a mining and fabrication factory like your first one in Liyue, and lastly a dedicated alchemy factory. I tilted my head to the side before I asked bluntly. What do you want, Ayato? What do you want from me? He gave me a long searching look before he smiled mirthlessly and said. I have a seal that you can wear. It's a special seal the Kamisato clan made millennia ago during the War of Celestia and was used by Inazuma ninjas to escape the gaze of Celestia so they could do their work. He reached into his robe-like suit and he brought out a ceramic Ofuta-like seal that was used here in Inazuma, and he continued. This seal will hide you from the senses and any forms of tracking from the gods of Inazuma. To say nothing of being a very potent boon for someone who hasn't had the time to properly cultivate. I used my build gun to quickly scan the seal and my lips curled at the literally millions of runes, seals, glyphs and other things built into the seal from its moment of forging and completion. So with how I recognized a few seals from the Adepti books of seals that Cloud Retainer gave me, I believed that he was speaking the truth. This is a wonderful tool indeed. But what do you want, Ayato? I asked, using his first name on purpose. Ayato shifted slightly as he leaned forward, and then he said bluntly, Jake, I want you to leave Inazuma. Right now. There is a chartered ship under the name of a powerful merchant of Fontaine I can have you smuggled out on. Or you can use whatever other measure you want. I was quiet for a moment before I said flatly, Why are you committing treason, Ayato Kamisato? He snorted and then said flatly, Jake, I am not stupid. You are a molten rice ball for anyone to sample, as Moryx is still the strongest god. And despite the Raiden siblings' strength, should they come to blows with Moryx and the Adepti, Inazuma will lose, and Inazuma doesn't have a lot of land masses to lose to the ocean when such gods are fighting. A giggle escaped Keqing at Ayato's words, and we both looked over. She was hurriedly putting away a smug smile behind her own cup of tea. I coughed and said, So you want me gone, so conflict doesn't come to Inazuma. Fair enough. Though that's not all you want for both the aid and this treasure, isn't it? Ayato's cool smile actually had a bit of respect in it as he slowly nodded. Correct, Jake. I am the lord of the Kamisato clan, and thus the lord of the Yashiro Commission, due to the fact that the Yashiro Commission is in charge of the land's more spiritual matters, shrines, and festivals. My commission doesn't have martial and economic might that the other two commissions have. He took a breath before he continued. When you get back to Liyue, or whatever aegis you decide to go under, I wish for you to use your influence to force trade deals with the force you are attached to that will allow us to buy food in bulk. I blinked at the request/demand from Ayato in return for this treasure that would hide me from the senses of literally fucking everyone probably. So I just looked at the treasure before shrugging and saying, I agree, whether I force Ningguang to do this, or when I finish making my own food factory in Liyue, I can promise within a couple months at most there will be food to be sold to the Kamisato clan. The way I put it was put very specifically. I wasn't selling to the shogunate or even the Tricommission. I would be selling directly to the Kamisato clan, who Ayato was the leader of, and the Raiden siblings couldn't bully him without a good reason to take anything I sold him. There was a pause as Ayato himself considered my words before he said calmly, And how will you keep this promise? Not to say your word isn't strong, but how will you prove your promise to me? He asked more than anything. My lips twitched at the cruel question, as there normally wasn't an easy answer to that, and he knew that. Instead, he looked to Keqing and spoke. Lady Keqing, you are his wife, yes? Keqing nodded calmly and said firmly, I am indeed Jake's wife. And I know what you are thinking, to bind Jake to the Kamisato clan with a marriage. I blinked in confusion, as that literally was the last thing I expected to come out of Keqing's mouth. But thinking about this situation, I knew that a political marriage was the perfect solution in theory. It inoffensively tied me to Inazuma without Liyue being able to bitch about it. It also assured Ayato that I would continue this deal if only to keep this mystery wife happy with me. I looked at Keqing, who raised an eyebrow, and then she said coldly, You are brave to ask a man's wife if it's all right for him to marry another woman for a political deal. And Ayato replied calmly and coldly in turn, The woman in question is my beloved younger sister, who is willing to make the sacrifice to guarantee the civilians of Inazuma do not go to bed starving every night. Ayato gave me a glance before he shrugged and said plainly, My sister is a good deal stronger than him as a Xiantian martial artist, so he is no threat to her frankly. You however are, and I don't want my sister to suffer with a head wife who refuses to accept her presence. I raised up a hand and said with a wry smile, Can we leave this conversation behind and just trust me to make this deal go through?